Not the vows. Just the sharp crack of crystal hitting the ballroom floor seconds before the bride collapsed in front of 300 guests. One moment, Emily Carter was smiling beneath the golden lights of the Grand Magnolia Hotel, her white dress glowing like something out of a movie. The next, her knees buckled. Her bouquet slipped from her hands. And her body hit the marble floor so hard the entire ballroom went silent. Somebody call 911. The groom caught her head before it slammed against the ground. His tuxedo stained instantly with blood from where she'd bitten her lip during the fall. Emily, baby, stay with me. But her eyes were already rolling back. Guests froze in horror. A bridesmaid burst into tears. Emily's mother screamed from across the dance floor. And near the back of the ballroom, an older doctor slowly stood from his chair with fear written all over his face. Because he recognized the symptoms immediately. And he knew the truth about Emily would destroy far more than a wedding. 6 months earlier, Emily Carter thought she had finally escaped heartbreak. At 32, she had spent most of her life surviving disappointment. She grew up in Dayton, Ohio, in a tiny apartment above a laundromat where the walls shook every time trucks passed outside. Her dad left when she was 9. Her mom worked double shifts at a diner for years just to keep food on the table. Emily learned early how to survive quietly. She worked hard, never complained, never asked for help. While other girls dreamed about weddings and romance, Emily worried about overdue bills and whether the electricity would stay on through winter. Still, she had a softness people loved instantly. She remembered birthdays, checked on lonely people, volunteered at shelters even when she barely had enough for herself. But love had never been kind to her. Her college boyfriend cheated on her with a coworker. The man she dated after that drained her savings before disappearing completely. By 32, Emily stopped believing happy endings happened to women like her. Then she met Daniel Brooks. And everything changed. They met at a coffee shop during the middle of a snowstorm. Emily had been trying to carry 3 drinks back to her office when someone accidentally bumped into her near the door. Coffee spilled everywhere. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," a deep voice said. Emily looked up, ready to yell. Instead, she saw the most nervous-looking man she'd ever met. Tall, dark hair dusted with snow, blue eyes full of panic. He immediately grabbed napkins and started apologizing like he'd committed a crime. "It's okay," Emily laughed. "Seriously, it's just coffee." "No, now your entire day's ruined." It was already ruined before the coffee. That made him laugh. And somehow, 30 minutes later, they were still talking. Daniel worked as an architect in Chicago. Emily handled scheduling at a medical clinic nearby. They talked about movies, terrible bosses, childhood memories, and the strange loneliness of adulthood. Before leaving, Daniel hesitated nervously. "Can I take you to dinner sometime?" Emily almost said no out of habit. Instead, she surprised herself. "Yeah," she smiled. "I'd like that." Daniel loved her in ways nobody ever had before. Not loudly, not dramatically, but consistently. He remembered little things. How she hated thunderstorms. How she always stole fries off his plate. How she pretended to be okay even when she was exhausted. For the first time in her life, Emily felt safe with someone. A year later, Daniel proposed during a quiet weekend trip to Colorado. No giant crowd, no cameras, just snow falling softly around them while he held her shaking hands. "You made my life feel like home," he whispered. Emily cried before she even answered. Yes. The wedding planning became the happiest season of her life. Her mom cried while helping her choose dresses. Friends flew in from different states. Even Daniel's wealthy parents, cold people who rarely approved of anyone, slowly warmed to Emily after seeing how deeply their son loved her. Everything finally felt perfect. Until Emily started getting sick. At first, it seemed small. Fatigue, fevers, night sweats. Then came the weight loss. The infections, bruises that appeared for no reason. "You need to see a doctor," Daniel told her repeatedly. "I'm just stressed." But deep down, Emily knew something wasn't right. 2 weeks before the wedding, she nearly fainted at work. Her coworker forced her into an exam room immediately. Doctors ordered blood tests. Emily expected anemia, maybe exhaustion. Nothing serious. Then the doctor walked in holding her chart with a face that instantly terrified her. He closed the door gently before sitting down. "Emily," he said carefully, "your HIV test came back positive." The room stopped spinning, then started spinning harder. "No," she whispered. The doctor nodded sadly. "We ran the test twice." Emily couldn't breathe. HIV. The word echoed through her skull like a gunshot. All she could think about was Daniel. The wedding. The guests. His family. The shame. "I don't understand," she whispered. "How is this possible?" The doctor explained there would need to be more testing, more questions, more medical history. But Emily barely heard him. By the time she reached her car, she was shaking so violently she couldn't start the engine. She sat there for almost an hour crying alone. Because she was certain of one thing. Daniel would never marry her now. For days, she hid the diagnosis. She smiled through dress fittings. Pretended everything was normal. But every night she broke down alone in the bathroom after Daniel fell asleep. She imagined the headlines people whispered about women with HIV. Dirty, careless, dangerous. She'd heard society judge people her entire life. Now she felt marked forever. Finally, 4 days before the wedding, Daniel found the medication bottles hidden beneath the bathroom sink. He stared at them, then at her. "What is this?" Emily's entire body went cold. She tried denying it at first. But eventually the truth came pouring out between sobs. The diagnosis. The fear. The shame. The certainty he'd leave her. Daniel listened without interrupting. When she finally finished crying, the apartment became painfully quiet. Emily couldn't even look at him. Then Daniel walked closer, and wrapped his arms around her. That broke her even more. "You're not angry," she whispered. "Why would I be angry? You don't want to cancel the wedding." Daniel pulled back just enough to look her in the eyes. "Emily, you having HIV doesn't suddenly erase who you are." She burst into tears against his chest. "I thought I lost you." "You never lost me." But not everyone reacted like Daniel. Rumors spread after a clinic employee violated privacy laws and leaked information about Emily's condition. Within days, whispers exploded online. Guests quietly canceled. One of Daniel's relatives called Emily a risk. A bridesmaid stopped answering calls entirely. Even Daniel's mother pulled him aside before the rehearsal dinner. "You still have time to walk away," she said quietly. Daniel stared at her in disbelief. "You think I'm abandoning the woman I love because she got sick?" His mother looked uncomfortable. "It's complicated." "No," Daniel said coldly. "People make it complicated because they're cruel." Still, the pressure became unbearable. Emily almost canceled the wedding twice. But Daniel refused. "We are not hiding," he told her. "And you are not something to be ashamed of." So the wedding day came. And for a little while, it felt like love had survived everything. Until she collapsed. The ambulance ride was chaos. Doctors shouted instructions while Daniel held Emily's hand tightly. "She's crashing. Blood pressure dropping. Get oxygen on her now." Daniel's hands shook so badly he could barely breathe. At the hospital, hours crawled by like years. Finally, a senior physician entered the waiting room. His expression looked grim. "We found something important," he said carefully. Daniel stood immediately. "What happened?" The doctor took a slow breath. "Emily's HIV diagnosis is real," he said softly. "But after reviewing her medical history, we discovered something else." The room went silent. "She likely contracted HIV from a contaminated blood transfusion 8 years ago after her car accident in Indianapolis." Daniel blinked. "What?" The doctor nodded heavily. "At the time, screening failures at a private blood facility were quietly investigated. Emily's records match that timeline exactly." Emily's mother covered her mouth in shock. "She didn't even know," the doctor continued. "The virus remained undetected for years." Suddenly, every cruel rumor collapsed. Every judgment, every assumption, destroyed instantly. Emily had not been reckless. Not careless. Not immoral. She had been failed by the very system meant to protect her. News spread quickly. The story exploded across television and social media within days. People who once whispered about Emily suddenly posted support messages online. Former patients from the same clinic came forward. Investigations reopened. But inside Emily's hospital room, none of that mattered. When she finally woke up weakly, her first words were barely audible. "Did the wedding end?" Daniel laughed through tears. "No." He reached into his pocket slowly. Inside was the wedding ring she dropped before collapsing. Then, beside the hospital bed, surrounded by monitors and nurses pretending not to cry, Daniel got down on one knee. "I was supposed to marry you in a ballroom," he whispered. Emily started crying instantly. "But honestly," he smiled shakily, "I'd marry you anywhere." The room fell silent. Daniel slid the ring back onto her finger carefully. "So, Emily Carter, will you still marry me?" She nodded through tears. "Yes." They got married 3 months later in a small lakeside ceremony in Michigan, surrounded only by people who truly loved them. No gossip. No fake smiles. No shame. Emily started proper treatment immediately and slowly regained her health. With medication, her condition stabilized, and life slowly became normal again. Years later, she began speaking publicly about living with HIV and the damage caused by stigma. During interviews, people always asked what hurt most. The diagnosis, the fear, the collapse. Emily always answered the same way. "The disease wasn't the cruelest part," she said quietly. "People were." Then she'd look at Daniel sitting beside her. And smile. "But love saved me anyway."